Morning, Glory America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. On this Thursday, I'm live from Studio North up in Maine. I'm so glad you can join me. I am joined by Bret, Baier, host of Special Report, the anchor on Fox News every night at 6 p.m. Good morning, Bret. How are you?
Morning, Hugh.
I want to begin with a little bit of a roundabout to my subject. You're a product of Catholic schools, and you're a very good golfer. I'm curious, did you play much on public courses?
I played a little bit on public courses. Yeah, I mean, I played on teams where we practiced on public courses, and but a lot of time on private courses.
All right. Now, you went to DePaul University, you went to the Pentagon, 11 trips to Afghanistan, 13 to Iraq. I point this out because if you go to Catholic schools and you play golf on public courses at all, you run into the great American middle class. That is just inevitable. There is a column today in the New York Times by Bret Stephens on what he was most wrong about Trump voters. And I believe it's because Manhattan Beltway media elites don't have any connection with America's middle class. And I mean, everybody on every public course everywhere, 9 out of 10 are going to come from America's great middle class. Do you agree with my proposition?
I agree.
And Catholic schools, you're going to run into all kinds of people. Even at Marist in Georgia, even at Kennedy and Warren, Ohio, they're going to have a cross-section because that's what Catholic schools are. Agree?
Agreed.
So Bret today says, I just didn't get Trump voters. It's the second admission against interest. The first was by Peggy Noonan. I don't know if you've had a chance to read it yet, but I think it's a very important admission by Bret about what America media elite have gotten wrong about Trump voters. Have you read it yet,
Yeah,
Bret?
I read it. I did.
What did you think about it?
Well, I think he's right. I think there was a lot of folks who missed all of that. And as it was happening in 2016, there was just a discounting of a whole kind of section of the population. And so no one really got it, and no one really got the polls right. They were way off. And Hugh, I'm not sure they're right now. I think that there is still built in this missing section of the population that either doesn't answer the phone, doesn't tell pollsters exactly what they feel, and really is untapped as far as knowing exactly where they stand.
You and I have talked about this before, and I hate to bring up, I work for the Washington Post. I hate to bring this up, but the worst poll in 2020 was the ABC Washington Post poll less than a week before the election in Wisconsin that said President Biden was ahead by 17 points over President Trump. He won by 0.6 points, a little over 20,000 votes, and I believe that was a significant and distorting event. It certainly weighed on my understanding of what was going to happen. I'm sure it weighed on voters. More importantly, though, if you never, ever mix it up with, play golf with, caddy for, go to school with kids from the great American middle class, you're not going to understand their margin. And by margin, I mean, do they have any resiliency? And I'm about to interview after the break, after the show today, Bret, a pre-interview with Nina Totenberg about her wonderful book, Dinners with Ruth. I mean, it's absolutely charming. It doesn't come out till September, so I won't be releasing the interview until then. But I read the books of people that I interview.
Yeah, you do.
And she's a Beltway person. And Ruth Ginsburg was a New York, Washington, D.C. person. And they're different from folks. And the reason I referenced 11 trips to Afghanistan, 13 to Iraq, you spent a lot of time with sweaty soldiers in dangerous places, right?
Yeah. And they tell you how they feel. And listen, I'll tell you another story. I'm covering the convention in Philadelphia for 2016. Hillary Clinton getting the nomination. Fox is not on the inside of the auditorium, shockingly. We are outside, set up on a tent, but we have these studios, and the tent is set up by all of these union guys. And the union guys are wearing purple T-shirts with "I'm with her" on the back. And I walk out of the tent after a show, and this guy comes up to me and says, hey, Bret, hey, listen, come here. And I go over and say, hey, listen, I watch the show all the time, but I just want you to know I'm not with her. And I said, oh, what's that? And he points to his back. He says, I'm not with her, okay? And I said, okay. And I said, are there a lot of you like that? And he's like, come on. And he'll walk with him, and we walk about, 200 yards to the lunch area. And there's about 150 guys, all of them with purple T-shirts. I'm with her on the back. And he stands on a table and he goes, hey, guys, how are you guys with her? No hands. How are you guys with Trump? 150 hands. And I said, that's amazing. Can I tell that story? Can you come on camera? He said, no, I can't do that.
I like my job. Yeah, Bret,
he wants his job. But that's exactly the answer that I think you're talking about here. And I think it's still a phenomenon.
It's a big deal. Last week I was in Ohio visiting my brother. And the guy across the street who's got a Trump flag, and the guy next door to my brother is not a Trump voter, but the guy across the street hears I'm in town, comes out with Ultramag a red T-shirt, says, hey, I hear you're here. And I said, you don't have to wear these. So I want you to see I'm Ultramag. And my brother had already told me it was Ultramag. And I got my ear bent by this guy. Now, this is Trumbull County, which is deep blue until Trump comes along. I mean, it voted for every Democrat except they voted for Nixon in 72 in the landslide. But they're a Democrat county full of steel workers and automobile union, UAW, USW, United Electricians. And they haven't changed their mind, Bret, but media's elites, it's more about Manhattan and Washington than it is about anything else. And if you haven't got any lines in, and I just wonder if Bret understands that he hadn't got any lines in. I just don't know. Of all the people that you have on the panel, and you have the best panel in America, you bring in about 25 different people show up on the panel over the course of a month. I think a lot of them have connections to this great middle class. And I think that's what distinguishes it. Is American media pushing off and saying, we'll see you later, we're going to stick with our own? Because it seems to me, except for Fox and your show, they're basically waving goodbye to middle America.
Yeah, I agree with you. Listen, before 2016, I traveled around swing states. I took 36 Ubers in my travels. And at the end of the ride, I'd say, hey, listen, if you feel comfortable, can you tell me how you're going to vote? And 34 out of 36 said they were voting for Trump. And I said, why is that? And they said, well, both sides suck. And he's going to kick the table over and do something different. And those people just were not in the polls. And when election night came and I had the call and I said, that means that Donald J. Trump will be the 45th president of the United States, I remembered those 36 Uber drivers. And I thought, man, we've got to be better at identifying who they are.
They showed up. They showed up, and they're going to show up again. I tell people right now, I'm a bad predictor. In fact, on your show on Tuesday night, I was wrong about Maryland. I didn't pay any attention. I thought Kelly Schultz was going to win and Dan Cox won. And I was wrong that the CHIPS bill would be $75 billion. It turned out to be $250 billion. I talked to Cotton about it last hour, and now it's a bill I wouldn't support. But I'm not wrong about the folks in Warren, Ohio. I talked to them. And they're still for Trump, Bret Baier. And they still don't have anyone talking about them and their concerns. More importantly, why? Without scorn and contempt. And I don't know if that's going to change in media except on Fox between now and Election Day.
I agree with you. I will say the caveat is that there is a little air that has come out of the balloon, even in that population. And maybe not much, but some. And the January 6th committee, as much as people discount it, does have some impact around the edges, I think, with independence. Maybe not this, what we're talking about exactly, but it seems like there is a hunger for another alternative, at least a little bit.
Oh, I agree with that. If that alternative will turn over the table.
Right. Exactly.
Because
they're kicking off the table.
If they're turn over the table, I'm going to steal for that from you, Bret Baier, because that is exactly the motivation. Turn over the table. It's not working for me. Bret Baier, we'll be watching you on Special Report tonight. Thank you. Always a pleasure to talk to you and have you on, Bret. I appreciate your time.
You bet. See you.
I tell you, America, there are very few places I don't watch media anymore except for Bret's show. I just don't. I go to bed too early for most of this stuff because I got to get up way early to figure it out. I can read a lot faster than people talk, but I also just don't trust anybody to understand what's really going on in America. What really, Peggy Noonan wrote a column that Bret Stephens today. I'm going to read the Bret Stephens article again. I got time this hour. I'm going to read it again. Peggy Noonan wrote a column in 2016 called The Rise of the Unprotected. And unless you go among them, and I mean travel with your fellow Americans in the way that Selena Zito does and Bret does when he's out on the road, and I do when I'm out on the road. Unless you do that, you're not going to get it. You're just not. If you haven't driven 12 hours on a freeway anywhere and stopped in a few rest areas and listened, or gone to the local diner and just listened, talked to some cops and some people and some teachers, and the San Diego bureaucrats who are putting masks on kids, they have not been listening. You're just going to be clueless. Bret Stephens finally figured it out. I'll read it to you when I come back. Stay tuned. It's the Hugh